don't talk.
Evening and a very warm welcome to the Rediscovering Conference. My name is Brendan Burns. I'm the head of Applied Theatre and Drama here at LIPA, and together with Collective Encounters, we're delighted to be hosting the conference and to finally see you all here this evening. Before we get into the meat of things, it would be worth introducing some of the key people that you're going to be seeing around and who are involved in the organisation of the event. So, Sarah Thornton, you can't be. There is the Artistic Director of Collective Encounters and really the key architect of the conference. And Bev Eyre, who's at the back just over there, is the Conference Director of all the knowledge when it comes to logistics. So helping Bev is there's a whole team of stewards you've probably spotted in the themed black t-shirts. And there's a help desk located just outside the theatre here. So if you've got any questions or access issues, those kind of things, talk to one of the stewards or go to the help desk and they should be able to help you. Okay, housekeeping, which always strikes me as the bit at the beginning of a conference that kills the vibe. Very, very quick. So I'm going to be as quick as I can. Fire exits are signed. Thank you. Fire drills, none are planned. So if you hear a fire alarm, we do need to evacuate, follow the people in the black t-shirts. Black t-shirts with the conference logo, not just anyone in the black t-shirt. They may not know where they're going. Important one. Smoking. Now, there's a smoking shelter located on the first floor, just outside the security entrance. Not the entrance you probably came in this evening, it's the other end of the building. There's no other smoking areas within the perimeter. That includes the courtyards and atriums. So even though they're outside, they're non-smoking there. And finally, most of the sessions are going to take place in the art building, the wing we've recently refurbished and moved into. And obviously we're holding the conference outside of term time. There's still a little bit of building work going on before term starts, so if you could just be patient if there happens to be a guy in a corridor painting. There should be no drilling, I hope. So, that's fairly quick for housekeeping, don't you think? Yeah? Anything else you can ask, we'll include those things. So, why are we here at the conference, not existentially? This event was really born out of a number of conversations about what we described or thought of as the widespread depoliticisation of our field, of the field of participatory and community arts. How all too often the practice is expected to function as some kind of quick fix for social problems. How instrumental applications of theatre as a pseudo-therapy pathologises the individual, the marginalised, whilst in the same breath normalises the oppressive elements of the system. And from that, how the artists, academics, scholars, activists who passionately want to address this and see real change as an imperative often lack the meaningful opportunity to come together. And we hope very much that this next couple of days will offer that opportunity. Not just to listen and not just to talk, but hopefully to inspire one another to act as well. So, onto the opening address. How can theatre help the struggle? And we decided, rather than lumbering someone with the task of producing a monologue to answer this complex question, and recognising the pluralistic nature of our work, we've asked instead a number of contributors to offer a 5-minute response to the question. It's think of it as a kind of opening address relay. So I wonder, would you join me in welcoming to the stage our relay runners, Senior Policy Advisor and UK Poverty Oxfam and Chair of Collective Encounters, Graham Whitlam. The artist, writer and scholar, Professor Cohen Cruz. The Artistic Director of Collective Encounters, Sarah Thornton. Offering the experience of a project participant, that's something that's not heard enough at these kind of events. Richard Thompson, who's a participant in the Transitions Project at Collective Encounters. The artist, activist and director of Reverend Billy and the Church of Stop Shopping, Savitri D. The author, sociologist and philosopher, Professor John Holloway. So each of our contributors will have 5 minutes to respond in some way to that question. How can theatre help the struggle? They may respond to the struggle part in defining it. They may respond to the theatre part or bring the two parts together. And after we've heard from everyone, it will be over to you. We will be looking to take statements and provocations from the audience. So please do be thinking what your responses are to the 6 initial provocations that you hear. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Graham.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're honored to be here as Chair of Collective Encounters and speak in front of you all. I wanted just to speak briefly about the profound effect that I think inequality and poverty has on our societies and on our politics, whether in a rich developed country like this or in the developing world, and just talk about what that means in terms of the nature of where power lies and our economy, and what that means in terms of people's participation in society. And then talk very briefly at the end just about why theatre and the arts more generally are a means of ensuring that people do have a voice and are able to participate and express themselves. I mean, inequality, high levels of economic inequality and poverty can leave people locked out of opportunities and locked out of power. In countries where economic inequality is high, people become disconnected and feel alienated, especially when they don't benefit from the economic growth that does occur or the opportunities that arise because of economic development. Economic inequality affects politics. When we have greater concentrations of wealth in the hands of a small number of people, what emerges is a very powerful elite who exert more and more influence over those who hold power, whether they're democratically elected or not. They exert pressure in a way that results in policies that are delivered in their favour. So we see it even here in this country in terms of tax liabilities and things that happen in that respect. The rich are very good at exerting their influence on the media and on politics, so that policies from government don't negatively affect them as they would perceive it. One consequence is that those on higher incomes, whilst they're able to exert more pressure on those who hold power, those on lower incomes become more and more marginalised. So what we've seen in this country is that the median income of the median voter is much higher than the median income in society as a whole, and you see that across developed nations in the Western world, as well as playing out in different ways in developing countries. The rise in economic inequality and dismantling of social democracy in developed countries has led to a real generational divide as well. So that young people increasingly are struggling to build up the wealth and the assets that their parents and the post-war generation in some instances were able to do. Instead, we've got an economy that relies on people taking on more and more debt. prop up, if you like, an economic model that, as we know, doesn't really work. As economic inequality grows, what we see is that there's a geographical separation. We see that particularly pronounced in this country and countries like Japan and in France to some extent, where the rich increasingly live separate lives in separate places to those on lower incomes. And it means their ability to understand the lives of other people and their experiences and what policies they need to improve their situations becomes ever limited. I also think that concentration of wealth and poverty in different parts of a country means that people have different perceptions of kind of what constitutes normal, if you like, in terms of income levels and what you need to live a decent life and have a good standard of living. People's cultural and social norms have shifted towards sort of thinking that the CEO of a company or a director of a company being paid 100, 1,000 times more than the lowest paid person in that company is okay, is somehow justifiable, is somehow normal, is somehow the only way our economy and our society can function, when we know that that's not the case. So I think in such circumstances, just to finish, theatre and the arts more generally offers a means that people can express themselves not just personally as individuals, but as groups, as collectives. So what's really important to collective encounters is people being able to come together and express their lived experience and what life means to them. And kind of it's hard for the media and it's hard for the powerful elites to kind of mask and dismiss the kind of realities that people are able to present through theatre and the arts. I think it's really important that over the next few days we keep that in mind. Theatre remains a really powerful tool to shape people's perceptions, to get messages across to those who hold power, and to actually start to make a change and a difference in our society.
Good evening. I first want to really appreciate Sarah for this foundational idea of systems that need to be repaired, damaged systems, rather than strictly looking at damaged individuals. And so thinking of that, I also love the little RE in Rediscovering the Radical. So that got me thinking about 4 ideas that I think are worth remembering, that I think continue to run through. I think they have to be contended. I think they continue to need to be contended with for those of us trying to do work through theater that has some impact on these broken systems. So one was put by my friend John O'Neill, quoting from a Detroit DJ as, "It's not the size of the ship that makes the waves, it's the motion of the ocean." And so it's this idea of the waves. What is the wave of the time period we're living in, of the place we're living in, that if we feel where that collective energy is, that's important. And where do we intersect with that? So I was thinking about as sort of a theory of waves and particles, right? Since that's certainly an important theory, and art should be put in the same category of important theories, right? Isn't that a physics theory, waves and particles? I don't know. But I do know that there's the important feeling, what is the wave at the moment? That there's analysis of one's time, and I think that continues to be important. So that's number one. Number two, I observe a tension between art that is purely instrumental, as you refer to, and art that is purely imagined, a counter possibility, a provocation, a temporary utopia. And I think that that's a very productive tension, because we want to be useful, but if we're going to use art, let's use art. So I think continuing to work that tension and not get over-polarized. And we can place ourselves different moments at different times. It's not to be prescriptive, it's just to be observing. Thank you for that, Napa. It's just to be observing that's a very interesting continuum to play in. So that's number two. Number three, artists who seek to make efficacious work must expand their practice. Like, it doesn't seem to me there's any getting around doing community organizing if you're an artist. Like, I used to always say, I taught for many years, and part of my job is always rearranging the chairs, because you got to sit in a circle for a lot of this work, right? And that's part of my job. So you might say a teacher isn't supposed to be moving the furniture, but I couldn't do it without it. So to really think of, based on what it is you're trying to accomplish, what are the other skills you need that aren't the art part of it? And then my last point is about actually the subject I'll talk at more length about Saturday, I believe, what I think of as common ground, uncommon partners. And by that I mean the importance of artists leaving their silos, spending some time in their silos. That's kind of point number one. You need that supportive culture. You need to be part of that wave. But it's also important to leave the silos and interact with people who share common concerns, not just a common métier. It's recognizing what we can and can't do through each of our various professions and our passions. Art can do some things, not other things. Radical lawyers can do some things, not other things. Environmentalists can do some things, not other things. So what is it that we can do by coming together across those different disciplines? And I think that continues to be a really important thing to think about if we're looking at systems rather than strictly individuals. Thank you.
Something because I can't stay short without reading. So, much as I would like to see a global anti-capitalist revolution happen right now, I've come to believe that it's unlikely. I believe that change will come and that it will be radical, but I think that certain things have to happen first. And I think theatre can help with this. It can help to create the right conditions in which change can come about, and it can alleviate some of the suffering along the way. For one thing, theatre can challenge the status quo and defamiliarise the neoliberal system. It can, like John was saying, it can help to see that the way things are isn't the way things have to be. It is not a natural order, but a construct we've agreed to and are complicit in keeping in place. Theatre can expose this. Theatrical interventions can tear away the facade, shine a spotlight on the grim realities, highlight the tacit agreements that keep the show on the road. They can point out the failures, the ironies, the absurdities, the injustices. Theatre can distance us so that we see the system with new eyes. And because we now see that it is a system, we understand that we can, of course, change it. Theatre can help us to explore alternative futures and new possibilities. The leftist theorist Slavoj Žižek said that we're at a point of such saturation with our present culture that rare are those who dare even dream utopian dreams about possible alternatives. But theatre is a place for dreaming. Anything is possible here. Through theatre, we can tell new stories and create new narratives for living. We can imagine what, in an ideal world, we'd like our day to be like, our life to be like, our world to be like. The first step to making change is imagining it. In our soundbite, knee-jerk culture, designed to silence thought and imagination, there is no time to answer aggressive, well, what would you do differently questions. Theatre makes the time and space. And its liveness, it's so visceral, so human, no screens, no mediating influence. It's communal, not isolated, a collective encounter, much needed in times that are for so many people very lonely. It has magic and beauty. It transforms and elevates. It is art, and we need art very badly right now. We need artists, collaborators, creative dreamers to help us think differently, outside the neoliberal box, with wiggly lines and random moments of genius. And so theatre can engage people as citizens, not consumers. It can break the separation between people and politics and explore new power relations. The process of creating theatre in collaborative environments means that we can experiment with different ways of organising ourselves, explore new participatory democracies, collaborative as opposed to competitive realities, relationships and processes rooted in equality, ethics and engagement. And finally, when we're involved in those processes, it can make us to feel better about ourselves and our communities. It can offer a safe space to share our stories and a validation of our experiences. It can feed our souls, challenge our prejudices, help us to stay sane in a mental world. But we need to remember that while it may make us feel better in the short term, as Brendan alluded to, unless we have radical change in our sights, we run the risk of playing into the neoliberal power brokers by fixing each other just enough so that we can take a few more blows at the hands of the system. As Cohen Cruz so eloquently said in Local Acts, the liberal artist works with communities to try and improve an individual's own life chances, whereas the radical artist understands the deeper political context of the work and seeks ways of working with communities to challenge and change the systems that govern us. The glorious Richard Schechner, founding artistic director with Bread and Puppet, said that we are between stories in a period of interregnum, where what was no longer is, and what will be has not yet arrived. I believe that theatre can help us to understand what has gone before and to create what is to come.
Hi there. My name is Rich. I'm a member of the Collective Encounters Transitions Core Group. When I share thoughts on how theatre can help us struggle, these aren't just my thoughts, these are the thoughts that we've expressed and explored as a group. The first thing to say is that we feel theatre can help us struggle on many levels. On a personal level, lots of the transition members, before engaging with collective encounters, we drifted away from politics, from standing up and sharing our views, and some of the members had never ever engaged. Yet by participating in workshops, sharing what's important to us, by researching for performances and characters, we've individually and collectively become more aware of the injustices that are prevalent in our communities and society as a whole. Some of us have started questioning the facts presented by the media. Some of us have become involved in local groups, and all of the core group registered to vote and voted in the EU referendum. We've also started engaging with the arts, realising that it's not just for the moneyed elite. And most of all, we've gained confidence to feel that we matter, our views matter, and our voices should be heard. On a local level, our families and members of our communities have come to see our work, have heard what we want to say, and they've responded to it. Some of the new core group members came to see our production of Farewell to Welfare, and it spurred them to join in and have their say. We've gone away and talked to the people about issues in a way that we never would have before. We've also trained as facilitators and have started running our own groups, giving our peers the chance to have their say too. So bit by bit, we're reaching out to more people, and we feel if it can work locally, then it can work nationally and internationally. As a group, we brainstormed how theatre can help us struggle, and what came out was the following. Theatre is a provocation. Theatre is for all. Theatre can give an accurate portrayal of what life is like, not the bullshit that's in the media. Theatre says it like it is, and you can use it to imagine how it might be. Theatre can shine a spotlight on inequality. Theatre is immediate and in your face. Theatre educates. Theatre is not the answer, but it poses the questions. Theatre is not a building, but a living energy that can get an audience thinking, screaming, shouting and motivated. Theatre is a rallying call, and that's how we think theatre can help us struggle.
I'm Savitri, and I'm very grateful to be out of my home country, the United States of America. Thank you for bringing us. I'd like to also shout out to the signers who are doing such a great job. I'd like to just say also all the people who can't be here tonight for whatever reason, whether they're fleeing a war or unable to leave their homes. I wish they were here with us. I also would just say all the animals and the plants who are not in this room tonight, you are welcome here, and I wish you were here too. because I'm an earth radical, and so any expression I have about theater comes from that perspective. I thought I should make some jokes about theater people being valuable to the struggle because we're really good at getting shit done. We're really practical, we know how to organize time, we're really good at panicking when things are bad, and I think things are really bad, right? So that alone is like why theater people should be involved in the struggle, because we're good at struggling. But I also want to say that I think theater is really the original media. You know, it's I'm talking and you're listening, you're talking and I'm listening, and there's something to be said for that simple form of media right now in this time when there is too much media all the time. And I also want to say that something underrated about theater is that we are allowed to repeat ourselves so often in the theater, and that repetition is valued. And I think in today's world that's really important, the courage to repeat ourselves. That being original might have more to do with our origins than being novel, say. Something I think about a lot. But I don't think anything can be valuable to the struggle if it doesn't acknowledge the struggle in an honest way. And so in as much as theater recognizes the crisis we are in particular the Earth's crisis, the environmental crisis, the ecological crisis, and how it affects all the living beings within it, I don't think theater can be valuable to the struggle without that examination. And so what really is valuable about theater, finally, is that it can mirror those larger systems. And we as theater makers can mirror that larger crisis. And how can we do that right now? Well, I think the most important thing we can do is look at ourselves and look at the monoculture that we create around ourselves, the monoculture that we participate in, the monoculture that we support, and defy it radically at every turn. And so we invite complexity into our lives as artists, as citizens, as human beings, as animals, as creatures of this earth. We invite that complexity in, and we operate from that complexity. And that, I think, at this moment of crisis, is how we can be of value.
I'm delighted to be here amongst such strange people. And I feel lost. Basically, I want to agree with everybody and say yes and sit down. But just one thing, particularly what Sarah said struck me. I thought it was terrific, wonderful, absolutely in agreement, except for one thing. And that was when you said at the beginning, Sarah, that the anti-capitalist revolution is in the future, it's not now. And I think we have to say that it is now. It is now because we just can't afford to wait. You know, we live in a society built on aggression, built on the aggression of capital, the aggression of money, and a society in which the logic of money is penetrating deeper and deeper and deeper into our lives, in the whole world, in which more and more of our interchange, more and more of life is becoming commodified, is becoming privatized, is becoming ruled by money. And we can see the effect that this is having. We can see the way in which it is destroying lives, and the way in which it is destroying communities, and the way in which it is causing such misery for the refugees that that are being drowned daily in the Mediterranean. That the penetration of money is destroying nature, is destroying the conditions of human existence. And I just don't think we can say anymore that revolution is in the future. For me, revolution is really about assuming our own responsibility for humanity and indeed for our part of the planet. That we cannot wait until the world is completely destroyed and then say on the last day, oh, it was all their fault. It won't have been their fault. If we get that far, it will have been our fault for not having assumed our necessary responsibility for the world. And I haven't said anything at all about theatre, partly because I'm completely ignorant and partly because I've come here to learn all about it. But I do think we have to think of this conference in some way as being a step forward in our assuming our responsibility for the world and obviously in expressing that through theatre.
That's a bit better. Just before we turn it over to you, I'm aware that sometimes it can be uncomfortable to talk in a room full of people that you don't know, and I'm assuming that you're sitting next to people that you do know, so just to warm us up, look, can I ask everyone to turn around and shake hands with the people in the row behind them? So there should be a couple of roving mics just coming out. We're looking for statements and provocations from you other delegates at this conference. It could be a direct response to something that you've heard. It could be your answer to how theatre can help the struggle. It could be your analysis, indeed, of what the struggle is. So, who would like to start us off with a raised hand? Yep, and great. Who have we got with that? Great. Can I ask you to stand? It'll make it easier for us to go.
I've been trying to teach my class disobedience, which is a contradiction of terms. And they weren't very good at it, because they were trying to do it properly. It didn't work out very well. And I've been reading a lot about Sarah Ahmed and the willful subject. And I'm wondering if our position now is to enable that willful subject to move forward, and that might be the first step towards moving to the second. So just a thought.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else with another hand there? Just come up over this side. My imagination is there. Okay, here we go. Stand up. That's correct.
I heard a comment about how money is basically destructing our society, well, the society that we're living in today, not just in our country but in other countries as well, which I do completely agree with. But as, I can't remember who said it, but someone said it will take time for the future we all want to be here. Do you think the usage of money do you think the usage of money will indeed benefit to that factor?
Okay, now, we're not answering, we can't answer questions, right? We're not miking mics up, but let's float that as a question to the rest of the audience. Do we think, can you just repeat the question? Just sit down. Just the last bit. Do we think...
Do you think the usage of money will indeed benefit the future that we all hope to have one day?
Okay. Do we feel money will benefit the future that we hope to have one day? So give a response to that, or to one of the other points. Anyone? We've got a hand right at the back there.
Well, I believe money was introduced by humans, for humans, to barter in services and things to help each other. Unfortunately, modern society has now a very few at the top who are collecting money, called billionaires. They're starving society, they're starving the world, and they're starving mankind. And we just need a ceiling on how many billions a billionaire can have. Once they get over a certain number of billions, it goes back into the economy at the bottom where it belongs, to help human beings be human to each other.
Thank you very much. So you know, oh yes, we've got another one here. Flo? If you keep your hand up so that they can spot you, that's great.
The last couple of points just made me think that I actually do believe that capitalism is completely broken. It is totally broken. It's virtual, and because of that, it's in its death throes. And so we will face that vicious beast trying to keep itself alive. But there's more of us than them, and I think, although change will be bloody, there will be change. And I think we're living. Like people in the 17th century didn't realise they were living during the Renaissance. I think we're living during a global revolution now because capitalism is double-booked.
Thank you very much. And there's a lady just back there.
I'm Tony Shade from the Philly Press Lab in New York, and I would just like to address the title of this particular talk. And I'm suggesting it would probably be helpful to rethink, let's say, to define the term help, and how do we help the struggle? How do we, so to redefine help, or to define it, so that we understand it as not being, our participation is not separate from the struggle. Right? Because sometimes when we say help, we can understand that whoever we're helping, right, is separate from us. We're not them. Right? So I think it would be very useful, I'm suggesting it would be useful to define that term, and also to define the term struggle. Which struggle? The struggle. Marta Heineke has just published a new book called Ideas for the Struggle, and she is very, very hopeful. For her, the struggle is the struggle against the capitalist system, and she's very concrete about that. And she suggests that there's, it's very, the present is very hopeful. And she is very convinced that we can create the world that we want to create. We can be successful if, and only if, according to her, movement organizers and activists really collaborate in sharpening what she calls the revolutionary edge of the work that they're doing, right, together. And sharpening the revolutionary edge by analyzing and rigorously assessing what it is that we're doing in order to bring back to the center of our approach what she calls protagonism as a form of democracy. So I'd just like to just put that out there as food for thought.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. as a kind of othering process that we help up. Could we run one of the mics up to here so we can pass it to the panel? Has anyone got a response? What version of help were we thinking about when we were responding to the question?
Responding.
Or setting it, indeed.
Yeah, setting the question, maybe. Well, I didn't think that word through carefully enough, I don't think, actually. No, I think it was about what our role is in it. So I wasn't seeing it as a separate thing. It's about what can we do? And I think when I was writing my paper, I thought a lot about the other ways of being part of, let's say being part of the struggle. What can we do to contribute, to be involved, to make a difference? And there's many, many, many other ways that we can do it, but my way is theatre. That's all I can do, really. And I'm sure that that's probably why most of us are, apart from John, sorry John, are in this room, is because we do theatre. So it's how can we use our art, how can we use our skills to make the world a better place. So that's where I was coming from, I think, with it.
Did anyone else want to?
Yeah, I think the whole question of positionality, where am I in this? And to me, that's sort of what I mean by particles and waves. The wave is the big movement, but then where am I in relationship to it? So I'm in a different place in relationship to Black Lives Matter than I am in relationship to feminism, just because of my own identity. It doesn't mean I can't be involved in some way. But so I think that's important. And then just the other thing about help is I think in terms of a culture where money is not the only value and the dominant value, I need help. I think we need help. We need each other to create that alternative culture so that we've got this vibrant, energetic life that's not those values. And so that's one of the ways that I need help. And it's what I look for in the radical.
And if you just permit me a little bit of etymological nerdiness here, you mentioned protagonism as an important factor here, and of course, agoniste in ancient Greek means the one that struggles. So it's built into the idea of acting and theatre. If we come back to the second part, what did we mean by the struggle? We specifically spoke about struggle as a struggle against capitalism. We also mentioned the ecological crisis. I'd be interested if there's anyone in the audience who is thinking of another struggle or an element of the struggle that we haven't yet touched on here. Does that jump to anyone with a response? Or any other response, indeed? Yeah, and sorry, I've got the microphones. Thank you.
I think we should add to that the struggle for a healthy mental environment. Somebody mentioned commodification. We're actually having our dreams commodified as we speak. Creativity is intensely commodified. I will also ask a question, which is because at conferences like this, it's good to be with like-minded people generally. Although maybe we'll find that there's that complex like-mindedness. But actually, are we in danger when we're here of overestimating how effective we are? So that's just a question, because as Sarah said, it's not just theatre. Actually, I often feel like I call myself sometimes an inactivist, because I want to get out there and get active. But many things intervene, things like family and children and so on. So I'm struggling to become an activist and to remain involved creatively. And it can be hard. So I suppose I would like to ask, do people think we are in danger at a conference like this of being absolutely complacent?
Okay, I'm going to open that to everyone actually. Let's just raise your hand if you believe, yes, there is a danger of us overestimating our impact or becoming complacent in this kind of forum. We're all quite a few. Okay, let me go back to the panel, sorry. Does anyone want to respond?
Certainly we do underestimate perfect all the time. But maybe
We can't hear
yeah, I'm certain we overestimate our effectiveness all the time. But maybe we need to. You know, if you write a book and you're thinking all the time, well, nobody is ever going to read it. Never write it. To build ourselves up in some way.
And likewise, we should always feel that we aren't doing enough. I mean, it's just like when you're stretching and you think, oh God, it hurts so bad, I can't go any further, and then you can go further. I mean, you can always do more than you think you can. I mean, the complacency goes in both directions, I think.
Just one of the thoughts as well, which is that, yeah, I think we do run a risk of being complacent, but I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, it's so rare that I'm in a setting with other people who might even be like-minded, that we can have a sense for once of, oh, thank God, we all know it's crap, and we can all agree that we want to change something somehow. I'd quite like a little bit of complacency in that, just for this weekend, to think, you know, oh, yes, we're in it together. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's typical of sort of anyone who's sort of active politically in any way. It's often the case that people overclaim a mandate, regardless of kind of what viewpoint they're coming from. We're seeing that a lot at the moment. Increasingly, things are becoming very atomised in society. I think social media has led to a situation where people create echo chambers for themselves, so they'll only hear and hear back views that reflect their own positions. I'm not saying everybody does that, but increasingly it feels that social media is a forum that allows you to do that. And I also think you do have to kind of understand where people are at. Not everything is crap, you know, for every single person. There's lots of good things about life, and there's lots of people in this country who live, you know, very privileged, good lives. The everyday experience of having a family, being married, having a home, going out to work, these things can be very positive, valuable things, even if there is something else at the back of your mind that makes you realise it's not everything and not everything's right. And I think you do have to kind of reach out and sort of understand where people are, and not sort of make assumptions about kind of their lives, experiences, views. Everybody's on the spectrum in terms of their experiences and their views, and I think we need to realise that, rather than kind of breaking everything up and things being increasingly atomised, where we say, we've got one group of people here who hold this view, this particular worldview, and want to see this particular approach, and another group of people who don't. It's more complex than that, and will always be more complex than that. I think we must remember that if we want to actually have a wider impact and reach out to more people beyond our own kind of groupings.
It really struck me what you were saying about complexity and kind of fighting against convention within ourselves, because I kind of don't think that the capitalists are just existing at the top of the corporations. We're all existing within a system of capitalism. You know, we participate in it all the time on our phones and everything that we do. So, but when theatre comes into it for me, I'm kind of, for the last few years, really fighting against the industry of the theatre industry, and how not that necessarily we're conforming to it, but that there's a lot of practices that you have to go through to get your work out there, or to do things, or get funding, or blah blah blah. And the thing is that it is an industry, which I think is not necessarily conducive with like the art form. I don't think they necessarily sit well together. So that's been my kind of fight in a way, is like, actually, how do you reconcile making theatre, which should be organic and come and be responsive, with then it having to be an industry where you have to apply for funding, and that takes 6 months and blah blah blah, because people need to get paid, because you know, you have to also respect that people do need money. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you know, people do need to get paid, but then how are you really going to change and be radical and push things forward? Like, I wish we could be making a play every day of the week, but I'm a theatre director and I only spend probably about, I don't know, 2 months of the year actually in rehearsals, and the rest of the time I spend a lot of fucking admin that I hate. Before I got paid to do it, I never did the admin. I didn't have to do the admin, I just made good theatre. And I'm a bit like, oh God, that's what I get frustrated at more and more, being part of an industry where you are a bit of an activist because you're just like, actually, I'm not changing anything right now, and I'm impatient, and I don't feel like I'm doing enough, and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know what can I say here, but basically, this thing of fighting against convention in ourselves as individuals, but also within the industry, and kind of maybe trying to have conversations with venues or with whatever about how theatre can be more radical as an exercise, because it has been monetised and it has been kind of restricted because of all that conformity. Like you have to kind of conform within a certain way of operating in the industry, and I just don't think that's ever going to help change things. And actually, there's a lot of work to be done, and we can't all be sat around waiting for one day.
Thank you very much. I've got time for just one more out the back there.
I wanted to say I'm pleased to be sitting in the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, and having come on the bus and got out here, Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts Primary Academy, all of which is very encouraging, but being very aware at the same time there's a real struggle going on to actually continue to make the arts and the creativity accessible in schools in a context where kids are being more and more pushed out of it and told that they have to do economically useful academic subjects rather than waste their time, and this is happening at a younger and younger age, and that's really brought up the struggle because it cuts people off from being able to participate even at school and then have those entrance points into the world of theatre and all the other arts which we find so vitally important for changing society and changing ourselves and expressing ourselves.
Thank you very much. Another hand up the back, just then. We'll give you time for one.
Hi, I'm not an artist at the moment, I'm not a theatre practitioner, but I have been in the past, and I think that those of us, or those of you who are doing this for your job or aspiring to do this for your job, I really think that our responsibility is to tell better stories. To tell better stories than those stories that are being told in dominant culture, those stories that we're fed up with, that we're that's the struggle, is to tell better stories. And if we don't do that, then we're going to end up just having the same old stories over and over again, and accepting the situation where as actors we're having to be paid for this, or we're going to have to compromise with that. That's not a good enough story, I'm afraid. It has to be a different story, and if we don't tell a better story, somebody else will tell a better story, and that better story will sound better, and etc. So our art has got to be really, really good. It's got to have excellent content, and it's got to be beautiful. And if it's not beautiful, then nobody's going to be honest with it. They're really not.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your very generous contributions. It's a very nice way to start with a lot of questions in the air, a lot of unresolved ideas that we can go on to wrangle with and struggle with over the next couple of days. So let's have a round of applause for our a 20-minute break whilst the stage is getting ready for the banner performance. So bar is open downstairs, and we'll be back to start out on stage. Thank you very much.
presentation on crazy eye. Let's give it